All right, so we all know how this goes, right? We've got that huge stack of research articles and books, we keep meaning to get to, and you're really just looking for like the core, the stuff that really matters without having to go through every single page yourself, right? And so that's what we're doing today.
That's right.
You've given us some pretty fascinating material here.
Yes, you have.
Excerpts from the mind-gut connection, and wow,
Yeah.
the central idea here is this incredibly powerful and I think often overlooked connection between the gut and the brain.
Right. And so really,
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, the vagus nerve is really this
Yeah.
sort of interstate highway
Yeah.
that's constantly relaying information, and it's shaping, everything from your digestion to your mood.
I mean, well, okay, right away, this feels important because we've kind of inherited this idea of the body as, a collection of separate parts, right?
Yeah.
It's like an old machine. And the book really highlights how outdated this is. It even compares it to like the difference between Apollo rockets and your smartphone.
Right.
And it's almost funny how much our technology has advanced, but maybe our understanding of our own biology hasn't really kept pace.
I think you're absolutely right. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
That old machine model just doesn't work when we're trying to understand the complex health issues people face today.
Yeah.
We're seeing this real surge in chronic diseases.
Yeah.
And it's rarely just one thing going wrong.
Yeah.
The focus is shifting, and it absolutely should be, towards seeing the body as this amazingly interconnected system.
And this gut-brain axis, as it's called this, seems to be right at the heart of it.
It is.
And it's way beyond just digestion, isn't it? I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about how this link influences everything from our emotions to even those, gut feelings that guide our choices.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole universe of the gut microbiota.
Yeah, that we need to consider, right? So what's crucial to grasp here is just the scale of this.
Yeah.
So despite people living longer in the U.S.
Yeah.
over the past, 40, 50 years,
Right.
the quality of those later years has actually declined.
Oh, wow.
We're living longer, but not necessarily healthier or
Yeah.
feeling better.
Yeah.
And this really emphasizes why understanding this gut-brain connection is so vital for your well-being.
Yeah. The book even refers to the gut as an intelligent supercomputer, which
Right.
I mean, that sounds almost sci-fi, but
Yeah.
when you factor in the gut microbiota, it starts to make a lot of sense.
Right.
It's like this massive regulatory system within us that we're only just beginning to truly appreciate.
That's a great way to put it. And it's important to remember, as the book points out, there's been a historical reluctance within the medical community to even consider this mind-body link.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And that story about the professor's reaction to studying the psyche's role in chronic disease really shows how long it's taken for this perspective to become more accepted.
So, okay, the gut and the brain are clearly in constant communication.
Absolutely.
But how does this actually happen? I mean, they're not sending text messages, are they?
No, not quite. But the physical connections are surprisingly strong.
Okay.
Think of thick, nerve cables running between them.
Right.
And as we mentioned, the vagus nerve is a major player here.
Okay.
And then you also have the bloodstream acting as another major communication channel,
Right.
carrying, hormones and inflammatory signaling molecules back and forth.
So it's a real two-way street.
Oh, absolutely.
The gut sends messages to the brain, and the brain responds back to the gut.
It does. It does.
Oh.
So
Okay.
the gut sends signals that influence things like feeling full after a meal,
Okay.
experiencing nausea, or
Yeah.
just a general sense of well-being.
Right.
But these signals also trigger responses in the brain that then loop back to affect the gut itself.
Okay.
For example, your brain can influence the movement of gut muscles,
Right.
the activity of nerves within the gut, and even the gut's immune cells.
Wow. And those gut feelings we talked about?
Yes.
The book suggests they're not just some vague intuition.
Right. What's fascinating is the idea that these gut feelings are actually stored in vast databases within the brain. These memories of past gut experiences. What felt good,
Yeah.
what felt bad, can then be accessed when you're making decisions, influencing not just what you choose to eat, but also who you interact with and how you evaluate new information.
This is becoming really compelling. So what about the gut itself? I
Right.
mean, it's not just a passive recipient of food, is it?
It's not.
The book discusses peristalsis and the migrating motor complex.
Correct. Peristalsis is that wave-like muscle contraction that moves food down your digestive tract,
Okay.
and the speed and intensity adjust based on what you've eaten,
Right.
ensuring, for instance, more time to absorb fats.
I see.
And in the large intestine, Powerful contractions help extract water and move waste towards elimination.
And the migrating motor complex.
Yeah.
That sounds like the gut's internal cleaning system.
That's precisely it.
Wow.
Between meals, this different type of pressure wave sweeps through your entire GI tract, acting like a housekeeper.
Okay.
It clears out any leftover bits of food, even things like medications.
Wow.
It's quite powerful, they say, strong enough to crack a Brazil nut.
Really?
And it also helps prevent unwanted microbes from setting up shop in the small intestine. Interestingly, it only kicks in when you haven't eaten recently, like when you're sleeping, and it switches off as soon as you start eating again.
So it's like your gut has its own nightly cleaning crew.
Exactly.
And if you're constantly snacking, you're essentially telling them to take a permanent coffee break.
That's right.
So this whole communication system
Yeah.
is usually pretty efficient.
It is.
But the book gives some vivid examples of when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Bill's cyclical vomiting syndrome sounds incredibly debilitating.
It does, and Bill's case is a powerful illustration of this miscommunication. His brain's emergency mechanisms seem to be misfiring, triggered by events that most people wouldn't find particularly stressful.
Right.
It's as if his stress response system had faulty brakes.
I see.
And the fact that these attacks often woke him up early relates to that natural increase in central stress system activity during the early morning hours.
Oh.
And medication that calmed those hyperactive stress circuits proved to be really effective for him.
Okay, and then there's Judy, whose anxiety seemed to have a very direct impact on her gut.
Yeah, Judy's experience really highlights another facet of this.
Okay.
Her worry about the presentation triggered that familiar queasy stomach feeling.
Right.
And the fact that eating the leftover omelet seemed to stop the nighttime rumbling could potentially be linked to the migrating motor complex being active during her sleep disturbances.
I see.
Perhaps the act of eating temporarily deactivated it.
Frank's story was also quite striking.
Yeah, right.
This heightened awareness of all sorts of bodily sensations, especially in his gut after the loss of his wife.
What's significant about Frank's case is the potential sensitization of his gut-brain communication.
Right.
His partner noticed that his symptoms seemed to worsen when he ate a diet high in animal fats and sugar, suggesting a clear dietary component. And we also learned that the GI tract isn't just about processing food. It has taste receptors.
Really?
Even for bitter and sweet throughout its length, not just on your tongue.
Huh.
These could very well play a role in this ongoing gut-brain dialogue beyond just our conscious perception of taste.
So it sounds like the gut is constantly sending detailed reports to the brain about exactly what's going on down there.
Exactly. The gut reports on the size of the meal,
Right.
the specific breakdown of nutrients, fats, proteins, carbs, the consistency of the contents, and crucially, any potential threats like harmful bacteria or toxins.
Okay.
The brain then responds by adjusting things like how quickly the stomach empties, how fast things move through the intestines, and by triggering those protective mechanisms like vomiting or diarrhea when necessary.
We've established this constant two-way flow of information between the gut and the brain.
Right.
But the book also keeps emphasizing the crucial role of the gut microbiota.
It does.
And they seem to be far more than just passive bystanders.
You've hit on a truly key point.
Okay.
The gut microbiota is absolutely a central player in this gut-brain dialogue.
Yeah.
Our understanding of this has really exploded with advancements in technology, allowing us to see this complex community of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms living in your digestive tract, not just as inhabitants, but as active communicators.
Right.
The parallels with computer science, this intricate community processing information, are quite apt.
It's amazing to think that early research at CRE focused on gut hormones, initially viewed as relatively simple on-off switches.
What's fascinating is how our understanding has deepened.
Yeah.
These gut hormones are peptides.
Yeah.
Turned out to be much more complex, almost like a sophisticated biological language, used by the trillions of microbes in our intestines to communicate not only with the gut itself, but also directly with the brain.
Wow.
That speculative article, Are Gut Peptides the Words of a Universal Biological Language, really captures this evolving perspective.
But it sounds like we didn't always appreciate just how important these microbes were.
Right.
Dahlia's experience with the gut cleansing had some pretty unexpected consequences.
Dahlia's experience after early gut cleansing, likely involving antibiotics, really hints at the potential downsides of drastically disrupting the gut microbiome.
Yeah.
Her light sensitivity and feelings of chagrin could potentially be linked to that disruption, although it's always difficult to draw a direct line in such complex systems.
The book then delves into how microbes can actually manipulate their host's behavior, which sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
Like, might sound that way.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the broader picture of evolution, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Think about the rabies virus causing aggression to facilitate its spread through bites, or the toxoplasma parasite altering rodent behavior to make them more likely to be caught by cats, which is where the parasite needs to reproduce.
Wow.
These are sophisticated evolutionary adaptations that benefit the microbe.
But it's not all about manipulation, right?
Yeah.
There's a fundamental symbiotic relationship at play.
Absolutely. This partnership between gut microbes and their hosts is a win-win.
Yeah.
And it's been conserved across nearly all multicellular animals.
Okay.
The microbes get a stable environment, a constant food supply, and access to the host's internal information hormones, stress levels, sleep patterns.
Right.
In return, they perform vital functions for us, like helping us digest food and producing essential nutrients.
And these early life experiences seem to be absolutely critical in setting up this whole gut-brain axis for the long term.
They are.
The findings from the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, sound really significant.
What's crucial for you to understand is how adverse childhood experiences are linked to a significantly higher risk of a wide range of physical and mental health issues in adulthood.
Right.
This really underscores the profound and lasting impact that our early environment can have on our overall health trajectory.
Yeah.
Particularly the delicate balance of our gut-brain axis.
Okay.
And the connection between poverty and poorer health outcomes due to chronic stress further highlights this link between early adversity and long-term health.
The book also discusses epigenetic changes caused by early life stress, using those studies on rat mother-pup interactions as an example.
Right.
And that's where the environment can actually change how our genes behave, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those fascinating studies showed how nurturing interactions from a mother rat can chemically modify a newborn's genes by attaching methyl groups to their DNA. This epigenetic tagging can affect how easily those genes are expressed, particularly genes involved in the stress response.
Okay.
However, it's important to note the significant challenges in translating these findings directly into effective human drug treatments targeting the CRS signaling system.
And then there's the establishment of the gut microbiome right at birth. That observation of the Yanomami birth practices was quite revealing.
It really illustrates a fundamental biological process.
Yeah.
The mother's vaginal microbes are absolutely crucial for the newborn's initial colonization of their gut.
Right.
This sets the stage for the healthy development of a diverse and beneficial gut microbiome.
Which makes the potential negative consequences of a C-section delivery on the newborn's gut microbiome quite concerning.
What's noteworthy is that babies born via C-section are initially colonized by microbes, primarily from the mother's skin and the surrounding hospital environment, rather than the mother's vaginal microbes.
Right.
This can lead to a delay in the establishment of beneficial bacteria like bifidobacterium, and an increased risk of colonization by potentially harmful microbes like Clostridium difficile. There's also a suspected link to an increased risk of obesity and potentially brain gut disorders like ASD.
It's almost as if early life stress, in a very broad sense, can program the baby's entire system for a perceived dangerous world. Right. Affecting not only their innate gut feelings, but also the very composition of their gut microbiome.
Precisely through her interactions with her child, a mother influences the baby's developing stress response system, potentially biasing their gut feelings towards a more cautious outlook.
Right.
She also, as we discussed, transmits her initial microbial signature, significantly impacting the infant's gut microbiome, and even subtle epigenetic changes can occur that influence how their stress response genes function.
So the gut microbes themselves can actually have a tangible influence on the brain. Lucy's case of IBS and panic attacks seems to strongly suggest this connection.
Lucy's experience is a really illustrative example.
Yeah.
What's key for you to understand is that certain gut microbes can actually produce neuroactive molecules like GABA, which is a neurotransmitter known to have calming and anxiety-reducing effects in the brain. Specific types of bacteria, such as lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, have this capability. And that fascinating study involving probiotic yogurt even showed measurable changes in brain activity during emotion recognition tasks, providing further evidence of this gut-brain link in humans.
But it's not a one-way street again, is it? Our emotional state can also have a significant impact on our gut microbes.
Exactly. Your emotional state, whether you're feeling stressed, anxious, or even happy, can alter the metabolites that your gut microbes produce. These metabolites then act as signaling molecules, influencing the messages they send to the rest of your body, including, of course, your brain.
And the potential link between an altered gut microbiota and autism spectrum disorder. Jonathan's worsening bloating after a course of antibiotics sounds quite suggestive.
Jonathan's case, while it doesn't establish a direct cause and effect relationship, does raise a significant possibility of a connection.
Okay.
The fact that his bloating worsened after taking antibiotics suggests that changes in his gut microbiota might have played a role in his gastrointestinal symptoms. However, it's really important to remember that GI issues in individuals with ASD are often complex and multifactorial,
Right.
involving dietary factors and anxiety levels as well.
This whole conversation about the intricate connection between the gut and the brain is absolutely fascinating.
It is.
And it naturally leads into this idea of intuition and the role of gut feelings in our decision-making processes.
Right.
The author's personal experience of choosing a career path based on a strong gut feeling really resonates.
What's particularly interesting is the proposed early development of these gut feelings.
Yeah.
The book suggests they are deeply rooted in our most basic survival emotions from infancy,
Okay.
specifically the feeling of hunger and the satisfaction of being full.
Okay.
These foundational experiences of feeling good when our needs are met versus feeling bad when they aren't lay the groundwork for future gut feelings.
So those very early experiences of having our fundamental needs met or unmet can actually shape our lifelong moral judgments and our overall perception of the world.
That's a really powerful thought. It is a baby who is consistently comforted and fed when hungry will likely develop a fundamentally different sense of trust and safety in the world compared to one who is frequently left to cry for extended periods.
Right.
These earliest gut feelings serve as a kind of internal compass,
Right.
influencing how we perceive the world and what we believe we need to do to survive and thrive.
And dreams. The book proposes that they might actually be a way for us to access these deeply ingrained gut feelings and emotional memories.
What's truly fascinating is the idea that while our conscious mind and body are relatively still during sleep,
Yeah.
the brain-gut microbiota axis is actually more active than at almost any other time.
Really?
The migrating motor complex is working full force,
Wow.
dramatically changing the environment within our gut for our microbial inhabitants. It's speculated that this intense signaling between the gut, the microbes, and the brain during sleep could play a significant role in the emotional tone and content of our dreams.
So paying closer attention to our dreams might actually provide a valuable window into our gut feelings and help us learn to trust them more.
That's the suggestion.
Okay.
Dream analysis is presented as a potential tool for tapping into that vast internal database of emotional memories and learning to recognize and trust that inner wisdom when we're faced with important decisions.
Okay.
The author's personal experience in therapy highlights this potential connection.
This is all incredibly insightful. Now, let's shift our focus to the practical side of things.
Good.
How can we actually take steps to optimize our brain-gut health through something as fundamental as the food we eat?
That's absolutely the crucial next step.
Yeah.
The book draws a stark contrast between our modern eating habits
Right.
and the more traditional and often more social experiences of eating that were common in the past.
Right.
The accelerated pace of modern life has unfortunately led to a greater reliance on fast food processed snacks
Yeah.
and less mindful communal mealtimes.
And looking at the diets of hunter-gatherer societies like that of the Yanomami people offers some really interesting insights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their diet characterized by a very high ratio of plant-based foods to animal products,
Okay.
a near absence of processed foods,
Right.
and the incredibly long period of breastfeeding, sometimes lasting up to 3 years,
Wow.
stands in stark contrast to many contemporary Western diets.
The role of breast milk, and specifically those human milk oligosaccharides, HMOs, in shaping a baby's gut-brain dialogue sounds incredibly important.
What's truly remarkable about HMOs
Yeah.
is that they are complex sugars uniquely synthesized by the mother's body,
Right.
specifically to nourish beneficial bacteria in the infant's gut,
Okay.
particularly bifidobacterium. These HMOs resist digestion in the baby's upper digestive tract and reach the colon intact, acting as a prebiotic
Right.
to selectively promote the growth of these beneficial microbes while also offering protection against harmful pathogens.
Wow.
It's an incredibly elegant evolutionary design.
And this extended period of breastfeeding in hunter-gatherer societies, could that potentially have long-term impacts on a child's brain development and their emotional reactivity later in life?
The book suggests this is indeed a strong possibility.
Okay.
Studies have indicated potential links between longer durations of breastfeeding and the development of oxytocin signaling in the brain.
Okay.
as well as activity in brain regions associated with emotion regulation.
Right.
It's likely a complex interplay of factors, including the specific nutrients in breast milk and the physical and emotional bonding that occurs during breastfeeding.
It's interesting how quickly our gut microbiota can adapt to short-term changes in our diet.
It is.
But the book also points out that there are often surprisingly modest differences in the overall gut microbiota composition between long-term vegans and omnivores living in a similar Western environment.
That's a really important nuance.
Okay.
While making short-term dietary changes can lead to relatively rapid shifts in the activity and abundance of certain gut microbes, long-term dietary patterns within a similar westernized context might result in more subtle differences in the overall types of bacteria present.
Yeah.
The more pronounced differences between these groups are often seen in the specific metabolites, the chemical byproducts
Okay.
that their gut microbes produce.
So our diet can definitely contribute to inflammation in the body.
It can.
And it sounds like our gut microbiota play a really key role in this process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
When we consume a meal high in unhealthy fats, for example,
Right.
it can trigger an increase in inflammatory molecules throughout the body,
Mm.
including lipopolysaccharide, or LPS, which is a component of the cell walls of certain bacteria in the gut.
Oh.
These microbes can then activate inflammatory responses within the lining of the gut.
And gut microbes also play a role in regulating our appetite.
They do.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yes, research suggests that gut microbes can interact with our body's satiety mechanisms,
Okay.
potentially influencing how full and satisfied we feel after eating.
Right.
There's also the intriguing link between consuming comfort foods in response to stress
Yeah.
and a temporary lowering of cortisol levels,
Right.
although this coping mechanism can unfortunately contribute to weight gain over time.
The concept of food addiction and how diets high in fat and refined sugars can actually alter the brain's reward system is a bit concerning.
It really highlights how certain foods, particularly those that are highly palatable due to their fat and sugar content, can evoke psychopharmacological and behavioral responses in some individuals that are quite similar to those seen with addictive substances.
Hmm.
Brain imaging studies have even shown structural and functional changes in the reward centers of the brain
Wow.
in individuals who are overweight or obese, leading to strong cravings and conditioned responses to these highly palatable foods.
The book is quite critical of the typical North American diet,
It is.
highlighting the loss of biodiversity in our agriculture and the increased consumption of heavily processed foods, including things like vital gluten.
What's significant here is the potential impact of these shifts on the diversity and function of our gut microbiome,
Yeah.
and consequently on our overall health.
Right.
The widespread adoption of monoculture farming,
Right.
the use of genetically modified crops, and the application of pesticides like glyphosate could all be negatively affecting the complex web of microorganisms in the soil and, by extension, in our own guts.
Mm.
The increased use of vital gluten as a food additive in many processed foods is also raised as a potential concern.
And this might be connected to the increasing prevalence of non-celiac gluten sensitivity.
The book raises the possibility that it might not be gluten itself.
Yeah.
That's the primary issue for many people experiencing non-celiac gluten sensitivity,
Yeah.
but rather the array of other ingredients and additives commonly found in processed foods,
Okay.
many of which also happen to contain vital gluten.
Right.
The scientific understanding in this area is still evolving.
It's even suggested that some neurological disorders like Parkinson's disease might have a significant gut-brain microbiome connection.
There's a growing body of compelling evidence
Yeah.
suggesting that Parkinson's disease might indeed be a gut-brain disorder that potentially originates in the gut with the gut microbiome, possibly playing a role in the development of those characteristic Lewy bodies that are found in the brains of individuals with Parkinson's.
In stark contrast, the Mediterranean diet is consistently presented as a well-researched dietary pattern that offers numerous benefits for overall health,
It is.
including brain health.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Its emphasis on a high intake of plant-based foods,
Right.
healthy monounsaturated fats from olive oil, and a rich variety of polyphenols has been linked to a reduced risk of numerous chronic diseases,
Okay.
including metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive impairment.
Wow.
Fascinatingly, some studies have even shown larger brain volumes and better integrity of nerve tissue in individuals who closely adhere to a Mediterranean-style diet.
Wow.
The high polyphenol content in extra virgin olive oil, especially from older olive trees, is particularly noteworthy.
So what does optimal health really look like in this interconnected context? It's clearly about more than just the absence of disease, isn't it?
The book uses Melvin's remarkable recovery from a severe plane crash as a powerful example of incredible human resilience,
Wow.
contrasting it with the more common experience of someone like Sandy,
Okay.
who experiences subtle but persistent symptoms that could be related to metabolic imbalances stemming from her diet and chronic stress.
Right.
Optimal health in this framework is about truly thriving, not just merely surviving.
Right. And it sounds like chronic stress and a diet high in unhealthy fats can create a really damaging feedback loop for the gut.
They certainly can.
Okay.
Chronic stress can actually increase the permeability of the gut lining, sometimes referred to as leaky gut,
Right.
making it easier for gut microbes and their byproducts to enter the bloodstream and potentially activate the immune system. This, combined with the pro-inflammatory effects of a high-fat diet and the tendency to seek out comforting, often unhealthy foods when stressed,
Yep.
can create a vicious cycle of chronic inflammation in both the gut and the brain.
So what are the key characteristics of a healthy gut microbiome?
The two main indicators of a healthy gut microbiome are its diversity,
Okay.
a wide range of different types of microbes,
Right.
and its stability or resilience,
Okay.
the ability to bounce back from disturbances.
Right.
Think of it like a diverse and well-established ecological landscape.
Okay.
It's better equipped to withstand changes.
I see.
A healthy gut microbiome is better able to handle perturbations,
Okay.
like Mrs. Stone's bout of food poisoning, whereas a less resilient microbiome, perhaps shaped by early life stress or a poor diet, might be more severely and lastingly impacted.
It's a bit sobering to consider that the consequences of disrupting this intricate gut microbiota-brain dialogue might not even become apparent until much later in life, potentially increasing our vulnerability to neurodegenerative disorders as we age.
That's a really critical point to understand. Maintaining a healthy gut-brain microbiota axis throughout our lifespan is likely to be incredibly important for preventing or delaying the onset of these devastating conditions.
So what are some relatively simple and actionable steps we can take right now to improve our gut health by specifically targeting our microbiome?
The book offers several evidence-based suggestions.
Okay.
Reducing our exposure to environmental factors that can harm microbial diversity,
Right.
such as pesticides and low-dose antibiotics that can sometimes be found in our food supply, is important.
Okay.
Increasing our intake of fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, and sauerkraut, along with probiotic supplements, can help to support and diversify our gut microbial community, especially during times of stress or after taking antibiotics.
What about practices like periodic fasting?
Periodic fasting can indeed have a positive impact on the migrating motor complex,
Okay.
potentially benefiting the health of the small intestine. But its effects on the composition and function of the microbiota in the large intestine are still being actively researched and are less clearly understood at this time.
And our emotional state while we're eating seems to have a significant impact as well.
Absolutely. Being mindful of our emotions and our surroundings while we're eating is crucial.
Oh,
Avoiding the habit of eating when we're feeling highly stressed, angry, or sad can help to prevent further disruption to our digestive processes and the delicate balance of our gut microbes.
right.
Conversely, taking the time to truly enjoy our meals, preferably in the company of others, and appreciating the social aspects of food can actually have a positive influence on the gut microbrain axis.
This has been such a comprehensive deep dive.
It has.
And it really all comes back to this incredible interconnectedness of our gut and our brain,
Right.
with the gut microbiota acting as this central, almost conductor-like influence
It does.
on our overall health, our mood, and even our decision-making abilities.
That's the fundamental takeaway.
Yeah.
We really need to move beyond that outdated idea of the body as a collection of separate parts
Right.
and truly embrace the understanding of ourselves as highly interconnected and dynamic ecological systems.
So the practical advice is really about being more conscious of what we're eating, actively managing our stress levels, and even paying attention to the emotional context surrounding our meals.
Exactly. These seemingly simple steps can have a surprisingly profound impact on optimizing your gut-brain health and overall well-being.
It's really quite amazing, isn't it?
It is.
We spend so much time and energy looking outwards, exploring the vastness of space and the depths of the ocean.
We do.
But this incredibly complex universe right here within our own bodies has been largely overlooked until relatively recently.
It has.
And as the book clearly highlights, the emerging science in this field is already having a major impact on how we understand our health.
It truly is a fascinating frontier that's right here within ourselves. And the bibliography you've provided, Bailey et al., Group and Nitschke, Gu et al., Hamilton et al., Henry J. Kaiser Family Foundation, Zhenig, Yezarev et al., offers an excellent starting point for anyone who wants to continue exploring this incredible inner world.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
It's been incredibly enlightening, and for everyone listening out there, we will see you next time.
See you then.